up, Taiwan? I'm Liao with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Israel says a new era of its war with the militant group Hezbollah has begun after a second wave of explosions in Lebanon. This time, walkie-talkies detonated, killing at least 20 people and injuring more than 450. It comes a day after a dozen people, including children, were killed and thousands injured when pagers used by Hezbollah militants blew up. Rosie Gweninger reports.
Mourners gather at a funeral for the victims of an unprecedented attack on Hezbollah militants in Lebanon, when there is another wave of explosions. Like the first attack, there were similar simultaneous blasts across southern Lebanon, this time coming from the handheld radio devices or walkie-talkies used by Hezbollah militants to communicate with each other. The blast claimed the lives of at least 20 people and injured more than 450. State news agencies reported that some home intercoms and solar power systems also detonated at the same time. It's caused mass panic in Lebanon, with people fearing there could be more blasts.
ما توقعت اللي صار اليوم، يعني اليوم رجعنا فهمت كيف انه كمان رجعت عم تنعاد الكرة، كان عندنا شوية أجهزة، نحن بنعرف انه هذه الأجهزة فهمت كيف انه 100% ممكن ما يكون مالها شيء، بس كمان على صحة السلامة شلناها من هالمحل لأنه عطلنا هم.
Just the day before, hundreds of pagers belonging to Hezbollah members detonated in their pockets and hands, causing the death of at least 12 people and injuring thousands, including bystanders. While seemingly targeted at Hezbollah militants, it's the number of civilian casualties in these attacks that are concerning many world leaders, with the EU's top diplomat saying there cannot be indiscriminate collateral damage. Hezbollah believes Israel is behind the attacks, in retaliation for the group's support of Hamas, who are fighting Israel in Gaza. It's also prompted warnings of further conflict in the Middle East.
This event confirms that there is a serious risk of a dramatic escalation in Lebanon, and everything must be done to avoid that escalation. I mean, the Hezbollah has been very clear in saying that it has launched its operations because of what's happening in Gaza, and that it will stop when there will be a ceasefire in Gaza.
The US says it remains involved in intensive diplomatic efforts to prevent such an escalation. That includes attempting to secure a Gaza ceasefire deal to reduce tensions. In response to the first wave of pager explosions, Hezbollah fired rockets at Israeli artillery positions, and they have also vowed to respond to the walkie-talkie attack. Israel has not confirmed or denied responsibility, but just hours after the fresh wave of blasts, top military figures indicate the country is preparing for more extensive military action, with the defense minister saying they are entering a new phase of war. An Israeli military division has been diverted from Gaza to the north, where the country shares a border with Lebanon.
ראשית, מרכז הכובד עובר צפונה. המשמעות היא שאנחנו הולכים ומסיטים כוחות, משאבים, אנרגיה לכיוון צפון. לא שכחנו את החטופים ולא שכחנו את המשימות שלנו בדרום. זו חובה שלנו ואנחנו מבצעים אותה במקביל.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is also vowing to residents who were evacuated from the north during past months of war that they can soon return home. But such a homecoming could hinge on Hezbollah's response to these two deadly hardware attacks, as concern rises that the Middle East is on a cliff edge of all-out war. James Lin and Rosie Gweninger for TaiwanPlus.
National security investigators in Taiwan are questioning the president and founder of the company named as being behind the pagers that exploded in Lebanon. The company, Gold Apollo, has denied making the devices. Louise Watt reports from outside Taiwan Shilin District Prosecutor's Office in Taipei.
The boss of the Taiwanese pager maker that denies making the devices that exploded in Lebanon is now being questioned by police and prosecutors, as questions remain over just where the devices came from. Hezbollah reportedly purchased the pagers from Gold Apollo, which is based in New Taipei City. But the company says they were made by a firm in Hungary, which has a license to use its brand. That company, BAC Consulting, appears to have just one employee and an empty office. Hungarian officials say they've confirmed it was an intermediary and not manufacturing or operating in Hungary. And reporting in the New York Times this morning says the firm is in fact a front for Israeli intelligence. So many questions remain, not least who made the pages that killed at least 12 people and injured nearly 3,000 when they detonated. Since Gold Apollo's name came into this, police have been investigating the company in relation to national security. Now the founder, Xu Qingquang, is to be questioned here at a Taipei district prosecutor's office. The latest twist in a case that still has more questions than answers. Justin Wu and Louise Watt in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's defense minister says China's increased military activity around the country makes it harder to spot a potential act of war. Wellington Koo told reporters Wednesday that Taiwan needs to move closer to a war footing, testing its capacity to respond to a sudden move by China toward conflict. China conducted a large-scale military exercise after President Lai Ching-te came into office, known as Joint Sword 2024A. Taiwan is now trying to predict when a possible second set of drills will take place. A Chinese man who came to Taiwan on a speedboat is facing 8 months in jail for immigration offenses. But he's just one in a string of Chinese nationals who've managed to reach Taiwan illegally in recent months, prompting serious questions about national security. John Van Trieste reports.
This man, Ruan Fangyong, says he has no regrets about sneaking into Taiwan on a speedboat in June. He says he'd been restricted from leaving China for online speech and that he came for democracy. By the time the Coast Guard caught him, he'd gotten near the mouth of a river that runs through the heart of Taipei, undetected. A Taipei court has sentenced him for immigration offenses, which he can still appeal.
所谓呢，因予以非难。那但是呢，念及被告犯后始终坦诚犯行的态度等一切情状，那合议庭判处被告以及徒刑8个月。
As officials discuss whether to deport Ruan, bigger questions about national security loom in the background. China claims sovereignty over Taiwan, and Ruan claims he was once the captain of a Chinese submarine, sparking suggestions the National Security Bureau get involved. And Ruan's case isn't an isolated one. Recent months have seen 5 Chinese nationals land illegally on Taiwan shores, most recently on September 14th, leading to questions about holes in Taiwan's defenses. The 5 Chinese nationals say they have a range of reasons for wanting to start a new life in Taiwan, from a desire for freedom to an escape from debt. But some are suspicious these are fronts for a Chinese probe of Taiwan's coasts, and that they really got to Taiwan with military help.
也不排除了哈，中共的军方似乎是在做对于台湾的海防，尤其是淡水这个部分在做不断的在测试，会不会这些特工人员都放置在中共的潜舰里面？
Some analysts recommend high-tech monitoring solutions could make up for a lack of Coast Guard and other personnel. But with well over 1,000 kilometers of coastline to defend, the cat-and-mouse game of catching illegal crossers may not be near an end. Scott Huang and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
China will reintroduce tariffs on a number of Taiwanese agricultural imports beginning next week. A total of 34 items, including fruits, vegetables, and seafood products that were previously exempt from import duties, will soon face tariffs ranging from 5 to 20%. Beijing says the tariffs are a response to Taiwan's discriminatory restrictions on Chinese exports and the Lai administration's continued push for independence. Taipei is accusing China of using economic coercion to manipulate Taiwan. A senior executive of Formosa Plastics, one of Taiwan's biggest companies, has been held at the Chinese border for over 2 weeks, according to media reports. The Mainland Affairs Council, which oversees Taiwan's relations with China, says it's unable to release details of the case and that it's yet to receive any requests for help from the detainee's family. Beijing has a history of detaining Taiwanese that it deems as endangering national security after they traveled to China for work. While Taiwan and China's political and economic ties remain strained, tourism between the two may have reached a turning point. The first group of officials from China's Fujian province has arrived in Taiwan's outlying Kinmen Island for the first time in years. As Chris Gorn reports, it comes ahead of an expected full opening of group tours to the small islands.
Banners offering a warm welcome greet Chinese tourism officials arriving in Kinmen. It's the first time such a group has been organized by the Chinese side since it barred its tourists from visiting Taiwan more than 5 years ago. The tourism officials from China's Xiamen, the coastal city in Fujian province visible from Kinmen's shore, are on what's being called a 3-day inspection tour of Kinmen. Taiwan officials say the first Chinese tour group has already applied to come to Kinmen as early as the coming weekend. Since blocking Chinese tourists during the COVID-19 pandemic, the economy of the small Kinmen Islands, just mere miles off the Chinese coast, has suffered. Although many in Kinmen have looked forward to the return of Chinese tourists, some experts say the economic impact may be limited. Whatever the economic benefits, the resumption of tourism between the two sides, even if only to Taiwan's outlying islands, would be a bright spot in an otherwise troubled relationship. Chris Ma and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
For decades, Vietnamese women have sought better lives by finding a Taiwanese husband and living abroad. But in the face of financial and marital problems, some couples have been sending their children back to Vietnam. Joyce Sung has more.
Along the Mekong River in southwestern Vietnam sits Tan Loc, a 3,200-hectare island that's home to over 29,000 people. Once known as the Sweet Island for its exports of sugarcane, it's now come to bear a different name, Taiwan Island, as many women here marry Taiwanese men in the hopes of a better life.
Đấy thì chính cái thời gian đó là con gái lấy chồng nước ngoài, mà nhất là Đài Loan là rất nhiều. Bị suy sụp, bị phá sản cho nên cái nguồn mà thu nhập nó không còn nữa. Rồi có một số gia đình bị phá sản, bị lâm nợ. Cho nên mấy cái cô gái mà lấy chồng nước ngoài đó là nhằm mục đích cũng như là giải quyết cái đời sống, là giống như là cái cứu tinh cho gia đình vậy đó.
These marriages have helped change the island, with many residents now able to afford brick homes instead of the previous thatch roof shacks with money from foreign in-laws. Over the years, rates of overseas marriages in Vietnam have also been boosted by online matchmaking services. But not all these unions end happily. Some Vietnamese women living in Taiwan with their husbands face financial and marital problems, with some forced to send their children back home. Middle schooler Chen was brought back to Tan Loc from Taiwan by her parents to be raised instead by her grandparents. She's one of what's believed to be over 1,000 unregistered children sent from overseas back to the Southeast Asian country.
我想要回台湾去上学，我很想爸爸妈妈、姐姐。
As a Taiwanese citizen, Chen cannot be naturalized as Vietnamese, nor can she officially enroll at the local school, leaving her in legal limbo and deprived of a formal education.
Có cái đó cũng có nhiều lắm. Cái đó là nó chiếm khoảng có chừng chưa có đánh giá nghe, chưa có ai thống kê, nhưng mà nó chiếm khoảng 20-30%.
Tan Loc may seem like a different place to what it once was, economically lifted by its women who crossed borders for a better life. But many of those who left have sent their children back to grow up without them, only to have them also learn what it's like to dream of life beyond the Mekong Delta. Eason Pan and Joyce Sen for TaiwanPlus.
And we'd like to thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Before we go, check out this footage of an Estonian man crossing from Asia to Europe on a slack line above Istanbul's Bosphorus Bridge. I'm Liao. Take care and see you next time.